Good evening, Vivian. How are you? And yeah, welcome to the REI Genius community. And we really just kick off and kind of go whether you got slides or not, or we can have a conversation and kind of go through and have you share your story, and then I'll ask a few questions, and then we'll let those that are attending live ask any questions that they may have.
Sounds great. Why don't we start with this? Let's start with the elephant in the room. Obviously, I don't have any hair. So if you are joining us in the room here, why don't you put a 1 in the chat if you're curious about my story?
I'm always curious of hearing everyone's story because everybody's story is different.
Yep. All right. Okay. So then let's move on, because I will tell you after you listen to my presentation. So there's the suspense right there.
Nice.
All right. Why don't you enable screen sharing for me, please?
All yours.
All right. Okay, so this is my company, Hestia. It's a brand for midterm rentals. Hestia is the Greek goddess of hospitality, hearth, and home. And, ever since I was a little girl, I really loved Greek mythology. So I thought, why not try to do the Greek mythology thing for my brand? And this is an example of some of the properties that we have. So long story short, we are a corporate rentals company, but I'll dive into that a little bit later. But let me tell you about my story first. My name is Vivian Yip. I live in Austin, Texas. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Toronto, a master's degree in in supply chain operations. And then I grew up in Canada, mostly in Vancouver, Toronto, and Hong Kong. I spent 10 years in Chicago, and also with about 5 years in Hong Kong. I've traveled to more than 30 countries, and I consider myself a serious foodie. I'll basically eat almost anything. And I have a husband, 2 kids, and 2 dogs. I spent 20 years of my life in supply chain and operations. And most recently, up until 2021, I was at Apple in their AMR operations team. From there, I was on the readiness team, where I was responsible for launching the iPhone 12 during a pandemic. While I was at Apple, I had a very happy and successful career. I won 2 national awards, both in continuous innovation. One of them was a global inventory management process, which continues to save the company millions of dollars every year, as well as a group project where we focus on some obsolete stock. But, corporate life wasn't something that I wanted to have for the rest of my life. Having 2 young kids, there were days where most days I would leave at 7:30 in the morning, and I wouldn't come home till 6:30. And I would have time to prepare dinner and then put the kids to bed. And basically, I would not know my kids as well as the teachers did. And there was a little bit of, resentment and jealousy there, that my teachers knew my kids more than I did. And I just kept thinking to myself, this isn't the way to live. And we started strategizing on what we could do to escape the rat race. Like most real estate people, we've all read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is how do you make money in your sleep, or how do you get out of the rat race? So in April of 2018, we found a wonderful mentor, and we started flipping houses. And we did 6 houses in our first year, both with full-time jobs. And in August of 2019, my husband was able to quit his corporate job. He was a business development director. And then I quit my job in April of 2021. And it was a dream come true because I was able to leave my corporate job and pursue real estate and hospitality all in one. Today, I spend my time as a full-time real estate investor, and I am also the co-leader of Invest Her for the Austin chapter. Invest Her is a global women's education group for real estate designed to empower women to live a balanced and financially free life. And this resonated so much with me because that's exactly what I wanted. And we have meetups all over the world. I think there's 59 of them now. So if you're into YouTube shows, my husband and I self-produce a little flipping channel. So you could scan the QR code. Otherwise, it's Austin House Flippers. Today, we have completed 25 projects, and whatever we could afford, we threw furniture in it and rented it out. And our current portfolio in Austin is 2 long-term rentals, 1 short-term rental, 6 midterm rentals, and a few more that's under my management. So let's start with hospitality. Back in 2019, I wanted to open up an Airbnb because when I was a teenager, I had an opportunity to intern at a hotel in Hong Kong, and I loved it. You know, I always thought that I would have a career in hospitality, but then I found out even if you went to Cornell University, which is the best in hospitality, you would have to start at front desk, and I didn't even want to start there. So I actually ended up pursuing operations, and I loved it there. But, you know, coming full circle back around in my 30s and 40s, I really wanted to pursue hospitality, but couldn't afford a hotel. But what I could afford was a distressed property in a northern suburb of Austin called Round Rock. And that's where I bought this distressed property for $185,000, which is unheard of now, and turned it into an Airbnb. And this was in July of 2019 when I got my first booking. And we all know what happened in March of 2020, right? I think it was March 16th. Basically, the world shut down and Airbnb started canceling everyone's reservations. I was completely terrified because I didn't want a company to control my revenues, right? Having another company, an online travel agency, being responsible for canceling my bookings, even though I had a strict cancellation policy, didn't sit right with me. So I snoozed my listing and I ended up putting it on the MLS as well as Furnish Finders. And to my surprise and delight, I got a 3-month booking for a family that had just moved from California, and they were building a home in Liberty Hill, which is another northern suburb. And then right after they moved out, I was able to rent it out for 7 months to a construction team that was relocating from Dallas to work on a project. So I didn't know it at the time, but I felt like I discovered something new, these longer corporate rentals. And then in May of 2021, I ended up quitting my job after I got my last conventional loan that I could qualify for. And I sold this property and put the proceeds towards other projects that I could invest in. But let's take a look at what the Airbnb landscape looks like right now. So this is an example of Austin, right? We have almost 14,000 listings. Most of them, 88%, 87% of them operate in the 2-night minimum stay. But if you slide down to the right here, you'll see that 12.6% operate in what's called a midterm space. Those are for 30 days and more. What's interesting is that with these 14,000 listings, only about 2,000 of them are actually legal and permitted. In Austin, we have a very, very strict licensing policy, and that is something that's happening all over the country. So, you know, many short-term rental operators are getting shut down and getting fines. And in fact, in December of 2022, our local newspaper had mentioned that the city of Austin was really clamping down on these illegal Airbnb listings, and they will be submitting an ordinance this month to crack down on that. So what does that mean? If I could see around corners, I'm going to say that a lot of these short-term rentals that are operated either by arbitrage people or owner operators, they've already made the investment in the furniture and the design. I'm thinking that a lot of these short-term rental operators are going to start sliding into this midterm space. So Bigger Pockets, they released a book this last year called 30-Day Stays. It's by Sarah Weaver and Ziona McIntyre, and it's become a really, really big topic this year. So there's a lot of people that are interested in what's happening in this midterm stay. The problem is that that book focuses a lot on travel nurses. And in the state of Texas, at least, our travel nurses are some of the worst paid in the country. So what that means is, and I'll go into that in a second, but here's some of the problem statements. Short-term rentals here in Austin are highly saturated. Even in some of the best locations, their bookings and occupancies are very, very low. An opportunity is that midterm rentals are more profitable than long-term rentals. And then the question then is, will midterm rentals also become saturated if all these short-term rentals start moving into the midterm rental space? So I'm here to tell you today that you can cash flow in traditionally non-cash flowing markets like Austin using midterm rentals. And you can do this and be lucrative and do it legally as well. So you're going to avoid all the problems of permitting, and you will also make money if you do this right. So some of the advantages of midterm rentals, typically you have a higher quality clientele. Many of these are professional clients. They're not there to party or, just vacations or whatnot. There's a much lower turnover. So you're not constantly turning the place over every few days. We're talking a turnover once every 30 days. You have a much higher occupancy. So in terms of short-term rentals, you have a lot of weekends that are booked and then weekdays that are empty. With midterm rentals, you basically get the entire month full with maybe a few weeks in between that are empty. With midterm rentals, there's also no additional short-term rental insurance that's needed, which is very expensive. I know there's a company called Proper Insurance, for instance, that supports a lot of short-term rentals. With midterm rentals, you don't have to pay for extra. Midterm rentals also have flexibility and control. And some of the disadvantages is that with midterm rentals, but also with short-term rentals, but more with midterm rentals, that you could run into tenancy problems, right? You establish tenancy in a lot of states after 28 days. So you need to make sure you're preparing yourself for that. The revenue is probably generally lower than short-term rental, but if you do it right, it can be just as good or even greater. And it could also be expensive to furnish, just like short-term rentals. With the midterm rentals, you're probably going to spend a lot more money in the quality of the kitchen products as well as the beds. So we'll go into that in a little bit. So let's do a little quick case study here. I purchased a property here in Austin, North Austin. It was a distressed townhouse for $200,000 in 2021. This is kind of unheard of. I got a super good deal on it. After rehabbing it, I spent about $88,000 on it. That's all in, including all my holding costs. And then when I refinanced it, the bank actually reappraised it at $405,000, which was amazing. They actually gave me, I think, $22,000 when I did the cash out refinance. So that's tax-free money, my favorite kind of money. Now, when I finished it, I was thinking, well, I could rent this out as a long-term rental, which would get $2,000 a month, or I can throw furniture into it and get $3,800 per month. So knowing what I knew in Round Rock that I could do midterm rentals, I thought, why not try this in Austin? It's got to work. So between my mortgage, property taxes, and insurance and utilities, I end up cash flowing just over $1,400 on this property. So what did I do next? I figured, why not repeat it? So today I have 6 midterm rentals that I own myself, and I also manage several others. This first one is the $1,400 cash flow. This next one is in Leander, Texas. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I cash flow on that $1,700 per month. This one is a duplex. So this top one and this middle one, these are the same building, just side by side, and each of those get $2,800 cash flow per month. This is a studio in my house that I house hack. I live in a really nice neighborhood and we have a studio in the back, and we were able to rent that to travel nurses for $1,800. And then finally, this is one half of a duplex next to this duplex here. And I only cash flow $700 on that one. I just picked it up last year, so I'm still tweaking a few things on that one. But I suspect if my strategy works, I'm confident my strategy will work, that I'll be able to get a lot more than that. So all in all, quitting my job at Apple is not too bad. I'm still able to cash flow more than $11,000 net per month. And these properties are almost constantly booked. So some of the midterm rental essentials, if you're thinking about getting into this space, because it is slightly different than short-term rentals, you want to have really great beds, right? If you're staying at a short-term rental and you're sleeping on a lumpy mattress or a futon, you're not really going to care because you're only committing to it for maybe 1 or 2 nights. However, if you're staying in a corporate rental, you really want to make sure there's great sleep experiences. So I have really nice mattresses. They're all over $2,000 that I put in my properties. You also want to make sure you have a dedicated workspace. Many of the people that are staying midterm, they work from home, or they just want to have a place that's dedicated for them to put their computer and work stuff. I really focus a lot on ultra high-speed internet. So my properties have not the highest of the highest, but with Spectrum, we have the middle of the ground, which is about 500 megabytes per second. And that's, enough to support maybe 15 devices. One thing that a lot of short-term rentals don't have are dressers in every bedroom. So with short-term rentals, people can live out of a suitcase and they don't care. But if they're going to stay for 30, 60, or 90 days, you want to make sure they have a place to put their personal items like sweaters and t-shirts and whatnot. I also like to include blackout curtains. Blackout curtains are great for people that like to sleep in, or even some travel nurses that work night shifts. Our kitchens are also fully equipped. We're talking blenders, air fryers, and cookie sheets, casserole dishes, really good pots and pans, definitely a microwave. You want to have easy parking or free parking, and definitely a washer and dryer. And finally, secret sauce in this space is to have pet-friendly spaces and garage parking. So one of the statistics is that if someone were to get displaced from their property because of an insurance issue, either an ice storm or flood or fire, most of those families have pets. 80% of them have pets, but only 20% of furnished housing providers accept pets. So if you accept those pets, you're opening yourself to a world of opportunity. So let's just come back to Hestia for a second. I wanted to create this brand called Hestia because I take a lot of pride in my properties. I make sure they have all of these essentials: free parking, stylish interiors, and super well maintained and really clean. They're fully equipped with dedicated workspaces, ultra high-speed internet, luxury sleep experience, and of course, exceptional hospitality. Because at the end of the day, with those floods of 1,700 Airbnb listings, I need to find a way to help my listings stand out. So if I think about brand positioning for a second, we only see mostly short-term rental brands up here in the top right quadrant. We have Wanderjut, Vacasa, and Evolve. These are the major operators here in the Austin, Texas area. And those, again, are short-term rental focused. In the midterm rental space, we have Furnish Finder, which focuses on the lower medium budget space. And then we have Landing and Hestia, which are midterm rental operators and are medium priced. Landing, you may have heard of them. I think it's hellolanding.com. They focus a lot on apartments. I don't know about you, but I'm not so much an apartment person, having 2 kids and 2 dogs. I like to wake up, have my cup of coffee, open up the back door and let my dogs out the backyard. You can't do the same in an apartment. So Hestia is the only brand out there that I know of that's featuring whole homes. And one other interesting thing to note is that from the Bigger Pockets conference, we know that 25% of Airbnb bookings are coming in as 30-day stays. So there's a lot of demand out there. So where are my booking sources coming from? I'm going to say that Airbnb, unfortunately and fortunately, is still the backbone of my business. I get about 50% of my bookings from Airbnb. After all, they're the largest leverage, largest clout. They have the biggest marketing budget. So I get my bookings from there. I get about 2% of my bookings from Vrbo. Vrbo is not that big here in Texas, although I hear it's growing. I do get some leads from Furnish Finder, but again, like I mentioned earlier, Furnish Finder is dedicated to travel nurses, and they only get paid about, at most, I think the highest I've seen is about $2,200 per month, but most of them want to stay under $1,600 per month for rent. So my bragging right here is that most of my referrals is coming from my network. Just because I've been investing in the real estate area for 5 years, I know a ton of people. I spend a lot of time on phone calls, doing podcasts, doing presentations in front of people. I've just become known as the midterm rental person here in Austin. So it's really, really helped me in getting my places booked. So how can I help others, right? Knowing that 43% of my bookings are coming from my network. We know that Furnish Finder isn't really appropriate for many of the properties here in Austin because most of us real estate investors, we need at least $2,000 to $3,000 just to break even, let alone try and profit. Then we have Airbnb, who is our biggest source of bookings, but Airbnb is expensive. For the hosts, we're paying 3% booking fees, and for the guests, they're paying more than 14%. 14% on a 30-day booking is a lot of money. Not to mention, they're already saturated, and there's tons of holes in the calendar. So if you look at this calendar, for instance, you'll see bookings on the weekends and openings during the week. When someone's trying to find a midterm rental, they want to find open calendars. And that's very difficult to find. So just a quick snapshot of what an Airbnb guest fee looks like. This example here is for $120 a night for 33 nights. This guest paid $434 just for that service fee. The host paid $122. On a almost 2-month booking, this guest, and this was about $130 a night, this guest paid $953 in fees, and the host paid $269. What if we could take away all the fees? What would you do with that? I know I'd buy myself a nice dinner because I like food. So again, how can I help others? We know about landing, and that's all apartments. So what can we do here? So I came up with a vision. What if we could have one place to easily find beautiful corporate rentals? What if we could be easy to do business with? What if we could use network and relationship marketing to drive a website to top of mind? And what if we could build strategic partnerships with HR departments, relocation companies, insurance firms, remodeling companies? And then how can we organically become the top Google site? So the mission for me is to be the #1 location for corporate rental searches in Austin and be the recognized brand for midterm rentals through Hestia. I think we're missing a lot of opportunities by not thinking about this because Austin is still a hot market. I know the news and the media is saying how much we dropped in pricing. It's absolutely true. I got killed in one of my deals, but I'm going to recover from it. I'm going to be okay. But, it's still a great place to invest and a great place to have midterm rentals because we have so much job growth. Just in December, in the 12 months leading to December, Austin added 51,000 jobs with a growth of 4.2%. And if we go to the last bullet point, our seasonally unadjusted unemployment rate is 2.9%. That's 1% lower than the national average. And this was just published on January 24th. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here because with more people coming to Austin, right, that means more housing, that means more insurance claims, that means more relocations, and more remodeling. So there's definitely something there. And this is just a photo of some of my clients. that have their listings. And I'll go more into that in a second. So why don't we focus on whole home rentals through Hestia and focus on these corporate relocations, new builds, insurance contracts, etc. As some people say, the riches are in the niches. I think we've all heard of that one, right? I'm banking on it. So my website, I've created a website called corporaterentalsaustin.com. And what I'm doing here is I'm inviting other Airbnb superhosts, hospitality-minded real estate investors to pay me a subscription, kind of like how Furnish Finder has it, but I'm going to target a much higher budget than your traveling nurse. The value proposition is that we've created a hyper-local website where I've handpicked all these properties. Every property that comes on our website, I've walked through, I've read the reviews, I've audited them for quality. Our website's already number one, or not number one. We're on page one of corporate rental searches on Google, which is super important because people pay a lot of money for search engine optimization, and ours has just organically grown there. Every member gets a $1,600 rental agreement included in the membership. So I had a realtor ask me today, she's like, well, why can't I just use the realtor forms from, the National Realty Society or National Association of Realtors? And I said, the difference is that when you're working in the midterm rental space, you want to make sure you have language that shows that the person is a guest and not a tenant, right? So you want to make sure you are not writing up laws by yourself. You're hiring an attorney, and that can be very expensive. So I've actually I've actually retained the services of an eviction attorney here in Texas to work backwards to create a document that's appropriate for midterm rentals. So I want to emphasize, though, that the rental agreement is not ironclad, but we've written it in a way that the language should hopefully hold up in the court of law. So now I've created a website for guests to book directly with established superhosts. That way guests can save money and hosts can save money. And then the host now can have 100% control of their bookings. Remember earlier I said on Airbnb during the pandemic, they were canceling my reservations. Well, we're going to put this control in the hands of the host as opposed to an online travel agency. No one's going to dictate your terms for you except for you. I've also created this website to be a no saturation model. So say, for instance, I have zip codes 78759. I have 5 properties there. I'm not going to bring someone else on board that's in the same zip code as mine because that wouldn't make sense. They'd be competing with me. I want to make it exclusive so that if you have a property in zip code, 78727, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, I'm not going to bring in another one on that zip code. I'll bring in maybe a 2-bedroom, 2-bath in the same zip code because at the end of the day, I want to balance my portfolio to have different price points and different room configurations. My website has a scraper technology that scrapes your listings and updates the listings automatically. So we're no touch. You just send me your Airbnb link and you send me your calendar, as well as for Airbnb. We will now have visibility into everything in your listing, including your available dates. We'll also do marketing on your behalf. We have VAs working in the background to help us with social media, as well as matching contracts. And whenever we get those insurance housing requests for the area, all my members will get first right of refusal to take on those contracts. At the end of the day, the reason why all of us go to Vrbo or Airbnb is because there's inventory, right? So if you think about it, Corporate Rentals Austin, we're building an inventory of homes where people like insurance companies can easily find inventory for midterm stays, which is something that's kind of lacking in the market right now. So let's look at the insurance claim process. There's a house fire. The family's displaced, they have a pet. The insurance adjuster then matches them up with a relocation specialist. The first place the relocation specialist is going to go to is a hotel because it's the easiest. But what if we could skip out this hotel process and go straight into one of our whole home, right? Hotels in Austin are expensive. Most of our whole home rentals are about $170 to $190 a night. I think that's a great price, and you get a whole house instead of a hotel room. Because I know with my family, we would probably kill each other in a hotel room. So the idea is to have strength in numbers, offer quality and reliability. So now Hestia, the Hestia name only has 26 properties, but we're growing. We're only 2 months old. So I'm going to celebrate that. I'm not going to worry about too much on the low numbers because I'm continuously growing this number. So basically, anybody that signs up for membership, you go through an approval process. Once you're approved, you automatically become a Hestia property. And with a Hestia property, you can buy a branding package that you can include in your listings. It'll include coasters and cushions and all that kind of stuff that you can strategically place into your listing. And you'll be featured on a beautifully curated website full of handpicked properties that I've walked every single one of them. And our target market, unlike Furnish Finders, which is doing, about $1,800 a month, we're targeting a guest budget of over $3,500 per month. So just to give you an idea of what the website looks like, you have one place to look at all the properties. You get a glimpse of how many bedrooms, if there's pets allowed, how many guests are available. And then the important thing here is how you navigate it, is that you navigate it by zip code. Because a lot of the people that are coming onto our website, they're either going to look for a property that's close to their work or close to home or close to schools. So we wanted to have it easily navigatable. And there's a map and you can click in the listing here. Again, this listing has pulled all your information from your Airbnb listing. You don't have to manage anything. You don't have to upload anything. You don't have to do anything that other than export your calendars. And we'll pick up the information. And then this blue button and green button down here, the guest can actually connect with the host directly. After looking at their calendar, like, oh, you know what? Those dates are available. Let me go work with the host directly, because these hosts already have a proven track record of hospitality. They're all Airbnb hosts. So again, it's a membership program. You apply for it. You get listed. You get to be part of our strategic partnership program. You get direct bookings and save on fees. You can stand out from other listings. And then for me, I think the big whammy here is getting access to this state of Texas legal agreement that is curated for the midterm rental space. So some of the prerequisites, you need to be an Airbnb superhost. You need to have an active Airbnb listing. You need to export your calendars, have a WhatsApp contact, which is even more important for people that are from out of the country, because WhatsApp is probably the most used tool there. You need to have a booking email address. And then if you have a direct booking link, maybe you're on OwnerRez or Lodgify or Smubu, and they have a website there, you can put in your direct booking link and that will direct them right to your website to get a direct booking. If you don't already have booking website, I highly recommend Boostly, because not only did they write the book called the Book Direct Playbook, but behind the scenes, once you sign up for their website, you also get access to their academy, which teaches you how to get direct bookings. So our membership price right now is $4.99, and that's just because we're still a startup. But you get the attorney created rental agreement, social media content creation, Airbnb listing optimization training. A lot of people don't have their listings optimized. So I've taken all practices and I keep my properties on page 1 to 3 typically. And this is a $4.99 introductory rate per year. So what this is a solution for investors can cash flow in a non-cash flowing market, but you just have to do it in a smart way. And this is also a solution for realtors, because realtors, I'm getting contacted all the time. Hey, Viv, do you have a midterm rental that I can put my client in because they're either, they sold their house and they couldn't get a lease back, or they're building a house, or they don't know where they're moving next. So if you want to stay and survive in the midterm rental space in 2023, you need to have a strategy. Whether or not you come on board with my strategy or you create your own, you want to make sure you have a brand strategy. There's going to be a flood of listings coming into the midterm rental space in 2023. A lot of short-term rentals are going to fall off short-term rentals and come into 30-day stays. Our website takes that a further step by desaturating and only allowing certain properties on our website belonging to certain zip codes. To survive in this market, you also need to have great relationships, right? The only reason why I'm at greater than 90% occupancy is because I have great relationships. You know, I just booked someone for 30 days, an ex-colleague of mine from Apple that had a problem with his home during the ice storms a couple weeks ago, right? And another one, I'm well networked with all the moms in our neighborhood, and a lot of them have family visiting this summer, so they're asking me for midterm stays. So it's a relationship business. And then finally, the next secret sauce of this business is to have an open calendar. When you have a calendar that's short-term rental focused, where you have, you know, stays that are you have bookings on the weekend but empty during the weekday, you're going to have a hard time focusing on this model, right? So my recommendation is to always focus on midterm rentals first, and then fill in the gaps with short-term rentals if you're allowed to. So say, for instance, you have a booking that ends on February the 28th, and your next booking doesn't come in until March 5th, fill the gap with short-term rentals, but prioritize midterm rentals, because that open calendar is what's going to differentiate you from other operators. So marketing strategy, I'm spending a lot of time on podcasts. I was actually featured on the Furnish Finders podcast about a month ago. They just released it. They found me at the Bigger Pockets conference. I was kind of flattered by that. And they actually tracked me down on LinkedIn to learn what I was doing here in Austin. And this is a big core focus of mine this year, is to kind of explain what I'm doing here in the midterm rental space. Because in 2023, we'll be expanding to Houston and Dallas. So if you know people that are working in this space in midterm rentals or want to pursue midterm rentals, have them reach out to me. I would love to talk to them further about how they can get listed and take advantage of these lucrative strategic partnerships that we're creating. So this is just a snapshot of our tiny little team. You have me, my husband, I have a VA. This is only one of my VAs. The other VA here is in Austin. I just have to update the deck. And then this is my house manager. She actually runs her own business, but she's phenomenal. And if you're in the Austin market, I highly recommend her. She's only 5'1", but she can do drywall work. She can paint. She can change light fixtures. She's flipped a bunch of properties with her own two hands. She's amazing. And finally, to talk about my hair, or lack thereof, I have alopecia universalis, but it hasn't always been that way. I lost all my hair in 10 weeks in 2020, and it was probably the most devastating time of my life because, you know, a woman identifies a lot with her hair. And during that time, I was going through a lot of stress, you know, trying to launch an iPhone during a pandemic with your kids at home. There's no summer programs. Everybody's wasting their lives away on electronics. I'm working 18 hours a day. And quite honestly, the only way I knew how to unwind every night was to drink alcohol. And I would drink alcohol, and then I would go to bed, and I would wake up, work a full day again, and I would do that again just to try and unwind. It became a problem, and I was in a very, very bad time. But looking back, I want to say that if there's anything away from this presentation tonight, is that you're going to go through times where you're feeling like you're losing control, or you don't know where to go next. If you stay positive and think about, maybe it's the universe helping you in some way, shape, or form. It'll help you believe that this bad scenario isn't happening to you, but in fact, it's happening for you. So for me, I was able to quit my corporate job 2 years in advance because I was able to look in the mirror and see that I didn't recognize myself anymore, and that my signal to quit my job was clear. And now I am able to pursue my love of hospitality and real estate all in the same place. And I would love, if you ever come to Austin, to be my guest. The QR code is my Calendly link, so feel free to scan that if you'd like to, and you can book some time with me and we can have a quick chat. I would love to network. Thank you.
Awesome presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love the brand and just everything that you're doing with building the brand and, you know, starting in Austin and now, you know, pivoting to Houston and Dallas. That I think that's definitely a something that a lot of entrepreneurs they focus on kind of the day-to-day tactical, but a lot of times we don't necessarily focus on kind of the broader strategic brand piece. Was that something that you kind of brought with you with looking at Apple? Because I really love to study Steve Jobs and, you know, his take on innovation and how he rolled out the iPhone and everything else, you know, that for the Apple products. But how did that impact you and kind of where you are right now with this entrepreneur journey?
I think one of my greatest strengths, and I'm not really sure how it developed, but I've always been really good at diving into the weeds and all the details, but not getting lost into it. I'm able to come back up and look at it from the sky view and say, like, okay, what are the themes here? How can I do things differently? What am I doing? What can I do that everybody else is, or what can I do differently and not do what everyone else is doing? Right. And one of the core values at Apple is to see around corners. That's the actual word they use. It's basically anticipation, right? If I could see around corners and I know that, number one, short-term rentals are not making as much money as they should be in Austin. Number two, so many of them are illegal. Number three, so many of them are being cracked down. So what's the most logical next step? Well, go into midterm rental space because you've already furnished a property, right? And then you can operate legally in midterm rentals. And there's a demand for it. So then I differentiate myself. Well, branding is what's going to be the key there, right? There's so many bad operators out there. What if I handpicked all of them? What if I reviewed all the listings and made sure the reviews are great? What if I look through all the pictures and make sure that they're high quality furniture, they're fully furnished, great yards for pets, right? I want that to be our defining factor. And currently there's only apartments that are doing this here in Austin. There's nothing representing whole homes. So I'm inviting other real estate investors to come in and join my brand so that we can differentiate ourselves from other people.
I love it. I love it. And I can definitely see the vision and the need. And I think that's the thing when you start looking at different markets, and especially with Austin and the growth and a lot of the jobs coming in, that even in markets that aren't as robust and growing at the level that Austin is, but I think it goes to show that there's always opportunities when you focus on the niches and you look deeper and really take understanding of what separates your market from every other market, whether it's a certain employer or if it's a certain cadence of employees that always come to travel to this one location for this individual company that you could potentially cater to, that there's opportunities that you can leverage.
And there's so many people that just come into town for the week and then fly home for the weekend. Like today I was at the gym and this guy that's in my gym class, he's been working out with us for a while. He's there all the time, but then he he's like, oh yeah, I spend about 3 weeks a month here and then I fly home on the weekends. And I said, let me guess, you're staying in a hotel, right? He's like, yep. And I said, well, let me tell you about my business. And I was able to tell him that, hey, you don't have to be stuck in a hotel. You can have a whole house for the price of a hotel room. How great is that?
Yep.
Are there anybody that wants to ask any questions? I'm happy to take questions. Yes, Joel.
Yes, thank you for the wonderful presentation, Vivian. I saw something about a $1,600 a month rental agreement included. I mean, I didn't quite understand that. Can you explain that for me? And also, does your market expand to outside of the Austin area, or are you only accepting members in the Austin area?
I'm accepting members in the Austin area, Houston, and Dallas for
Okay,
now.
okay.
But there's more strategic plans for the future. Okay, so going back to the rental agreement thing, the rental agreement is something that a lot of midterm rental hosts struggle with because they're not really sure what the language should be. A lot of them are using realtor forms, but the realtor forms are designed for year-long leases, which establishes tenancy. So if you need to kick someone out, it's going to be very difficult to kick someone out in a midterm space if you have a tenancy agreement. So the idea is to work with an attorney that specializes in evictions, to work backwards from there, to create a document that has the correct language that says this person is not a tenant, this person is a guest, and this owner has innkeeper rights, not landlord rights. So say, for instance, you're at a hotel and you don't pay your hotel bill, they'll kick you out right away because you're not a tenant, because you're a guest. So it's the same idea here. We're creating language around a rental agreement document that I'm giving away to my members so that they feel empowered to control their property and their rights. That makes sense?
So in your contract, you're saying that the owner has, I mean, I don't understand where the $1,600 comes in. I said you're saying the owner has a.
Oh, it cost me $1,600 to create this document, and I'm giving it away as part of the membership.
Okay, now I get it. I got you.
No, I appreciate you questioning, because then now I can clarify that for future presentations.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I guess not.
If no other questions, I do have one.
Today.
How are how are you looking to kind of continue or pivot in 2023 with like future acquisitions? Because I know with, of course, the interest rates are continuing to kind of fluctuate between the 5.5 to 7 range, and I think they'll probably stay there for the near future. How are you kind of navigating that space with looking at future acquisitions, to kind of continue to grow your portfolio?
Well, for now, I am not really focused on growing my portfolio. I'm really focused on growing and expanding this brand, because at the end of the day, it still gives me access to inventory without owning the properties. But that's not to say I won't give up a good deal. I love buying great deals. So I never really focus too much on the interest rate, but if the numbers make sense, that is at the end of the day is what's makes sense to me. And obviously having multiple exit strategies depending on what the market does is really important as well. So if the property is a good deal and I can have multiple exit strategies with it, it's a home run for me.
Awesome. No, that's a great answer. I think you can never go wrong with having multiple exit strategies. Whether you're in a high interest rate environment or a low interest rate environment, but if you're able to figure out how you can cash flow and you can make the property profitable, then it's always going to win. And
and I can tell you, there's about 6 real estate investors that have joined my website because their flips turn into flops, right? They didn't anticipate, the market to flatten as much as it did. So they end up throwing furniture in it, and they didn't have, a lot of them didn't even have to buy the furniture. They actually rented it from their stager. So that also helps alleviate some of the costs as well. So there's some creative ways to furnish your property if you're, holding one that's that you can't sell.
For sure. No, that's definitely a great strategy, and I think one to go, because as you look at the demographics and where the workforce is now with younger workers coming into the workplace, that people love flexibility. We've seen the expansion of teleworking. that I think is just, of course, when you start looking at more of the tech jobs, which is Austin is a tech friendly city, that people want flexibility now. They don't want to be tied 30-year mortgage, or, they may come work 2-3 months here or there, or they can move somewhere and work, remote across the United States or really across the globe. Just depending on where it's the ultimate flexibility. So I think being able to meet those needs that the midterm rentals is
And honestly, our midterm rentals aren't even that expensive. Like I was in New York City 2 weeks ago with my daughter for her birthday. And, just like every other real estate investor, I'm walking through Times Square or walking through Chinatown, and I'm on Zillow just checking out what the rent rates are. So in Times Square, you can get a studio that's about 480 square feet for about $3,000.
Wow.
But you can come to Austin and get a whole half of a duplex for the same amount of money, right?
Yeah.
And you can work remote and have more space to spread out. You have a place to park your car. You can ride your bike. I mean, it's great for people, digital nomads, for sure. Joseph, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Hey, Vivian. First, I just want to say thank you for your time this evening. It was a great presentation. Really refreshing and enlightening to see how you're running the company like that. I think Apple lost a great employee. But
Thank you.
my question is, I think you said that, did you say that you had to be a prior Airbnb host in order to work with you?
Yes. So my technology is based on you having an Airbnb listing.
Okay.
But one of these subjective prerequisites is that you have a track record of hospitality. And that would mean that you are an Airbnb superhost, which means that you have great reviews, and you're valued as a trusted host on Airbnb. Of course, there's exceptions to this, right? There was a guy recently that had never run an Airbnb before, but he had a flip that turned into a flop, and he needed to furnish it and get it on the market. We got that rented for 3 months straight, which I'm so happy about. But he never had a superhost status. So instead of just saying, no, you can't be on my website, I asked him more questions, and I actually found out that he used to be a hotel manager. That in itself tells me that he knows hospitality. So I'm not going to be unreasonable. I'm a very reasonable person. So yes, I accepted that. I think we lost Joseph.
Yeah, he did fall off.
Okay. Any other questions?
No other questions on my part. I really enjoyed the presentation, and just I'm definitely gonna be on the lookout for your brand going forward, and just all your future success with just kind of just seeing the strategy. And I already know you're looking around probably one or two or three more corners already, kind of looking at how you want to position the company in the future. So that's super exciting.
Yeah. And, I'm always open to partnership ideas. So if anybody, really loves this model and wants to figure out how they can be part of the excitement, I'm open to discussion. So please scan my QR code if you'd like to get a hold of me. I would love 15 minutes to network with any of you one-on-one.
Awesome. Well, we definitely appreciate you stopping by and providing this workshop tonight, Vivian. And we have to bring you back on sometime in the future as you kind of expand into those other Texas markets and kind of see what success has brought you over the time period in between. So,
oh, I'm so nervous, but excited.
Yeah, no pressure. No, I know you're going to do great.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for jumping on.
No problem. Have a great evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.